Goodbye YouTube, hopefully y'all are having a good day today, and as you can see, this is going to be that lengthy RU battle I had against Shofu, which I know some of you might not want to watch it, but trust me, this was a pretty fun, intense battle that came down to be very close, and definitely worth the watch, so please make sure to stick around to the very end. Anyways, looking at the team preview, I'm actually using this new RU team that I made relatively quick, but to my surprise, it's actually not that bad and has really been working out for me the past couple battles I've had with it. Unfortunately, it does have some common flaws to it and major weaknesses, and it just so happens that Shofu carries two of those major threats to my team, which are the Rotom and the Exceligor. Depending on what set the Rotom is will depend on how I will be able to deal with it, but if he's a Choice Specs or Choice Scarf variant, then my Cresselia can take any one hit from that and take one hit from Exceligor. Then I can get off a Thunder Wave on them, nullifying them and not having them be as big threats as they normally would be, so I don't really have to worry about those two unless I let them get out of hand. Also, the Aggron, if he is Choice Banded, could be doing a good number to my team if I lose my Sandslash, so I definitely have to watch out for that. But because the only thing on his team that I appreciated taking an Adamant Choice Banded Flare Blitz was his MUNCHLAX, I knew he wouldn't lead off with that, so I decided to lead off with my Entei, as he actually ends up leading off with the Rotom. Right off the bat, I'm going to switch out into my Sandslash, thinking he might want to go for a possible Volt Switch, but he actually pulls his own switch out to the MUNCHLAX, thinking I would want to go straight for the Flare Blitz. And this turn, what I'm going to do is actually predict him to bring in the Sandslash, possibly predicting me to go for the Stealth Rock so I can go for the Scald the next turn, or maybe even pull another double switch out, but I thought that the switch out would be too obvious, so I decided to stay in and just go for the Scald, as he actually does make the safe play, goes down to the MUNCHLAX, and I go for the Psyshock, which does not do nearly as much as I thought it would, and it turns out that he's actually running the more physically defensive set that Smolgan suggests, as opposed to the max special defense and max HP ones that I'm used to seeing. As I go for the Toxic, I want to force him to go for the rest, because in the back of my mind I was thinking to myself, if I have to, I will stall this MUNCHLAX out of Sleep Talks if it really has to come down to that prior moment. Because the one thing I had for this MUNCHLAX was my Slowking with Psyshock, but as you saw, that Psyshock did nothing at all. And we both pull a double switch. As I go into my Sandslash, he switches out to the Rotom. Knowing I should be able to take any one hit, I'm actually going to stay in and go for the Stone Edge, and I get off a pretty good chunk of damage onto it. As he goes for the Shadow Ball the following turn, I'm going to switch out to my Perreo, aka my Klinklang. Just wanted to save my Sandslash for later on in the battle, so once I get rid of this Rotom, if I have to, I can just spin the rocks away, and I actually take the Shadow Ball relatively well. And here I could have gone for the Shift Gear or the Substitute, but I knew the switch out into the Sandslash was pretty obvious, so what I decided to do instead was go for the offensive play, just try to get off as much damage on this Sandslash as possible. And the turn after that, the Stealth Rocks is pretty obvious, so what I want to do is just get some more damage off of the Gigaran, and thinking that this turn he would go for the Earthquake, I decided to switch directly out into my Cresselia, as he does go for it. At the amount of HP that Sandslash is at, I'm pretty positive that an Ice Beam will be able to finish him off, but because I know the switch out to MUNCHLAX is obvious as well, I'm actually going to pull a double switch of my own out into my Entei. And the reason why I did this is because I did run a damage calc on how much damage Flare Blitz would do, and at the amount of HP that MUNCHLAX was at, I believe I had a chance to actually Oko him. So I decided to stay in, take my chances, go for the Flare Blitz, as he lives on about 30, I was going to say 20 or 30%, sorry, completely fucked that up, 20 or 30% HP. He's going to be able to go for the rest, and it turns out that I actually miscalced the damage that Flare Blitz would do to MUNCHLAX, which means I essentially left in my Entei to take a unnecessary amount of recoil, which it wouldn't have to have taken, so that was really stupid on my part. And I'm going to be forced to switch out as it goes for the Sleep Talk. My best and only real switch into this thing is my Slowking, due to the fact that I can take Body Slams like a monster. And again, just like Sleep Talk, I was thinking to myself, if I have to, I will stall out Body Slams, because just like Sleep Talk, Body Slam only has 16 PP. And this turn, I'm just going to go for the Psyshock. Thankfully for me, he's not switching out to the Aggron, considering that I keep going for the Psyshock. As he wakes up, he's going to go for the Whirlwind me out to my Cresselia, which really is not the best switch in for me. So what I'm going to want to do is obviously just switch directly on out in the off chance that maybe he does want to go for the Body Slam, because I cannot afford to have my Cresselia paralyzed or take any more unnecessary damage than it has to take. As he goes for the Body Slam, I do bring in my Slowking. At this point, I really lost count on how many Body Slams he went for, but I knew eventually he would run out, so I really wasn't too worried about it. And here he makes a bit of an odd switch out to the Rotom. Not entirely too sure why he did this. I did go for the Scald, and above that I'm actually able to get the burn, which, you know what, is payback for him crit paralyzing me earlier on in the battle. And I know this Rotom is basically dead at this point, so I decided to bring in my Klinklang. On hindsight, I should have just gone out into my Sand Slash, seeing as he would obviously want to save this Rotom on the options that I do bring in my Sand Slash and go straight for the Rapid Spin. Then again, if he does switch it in, it will die off to the burn. Either way, I still think Sand Slash would have been the better switch in, but hey, hindsight is 2020 and there's nothing I can do about it. So he Volt Switches down to the Exceligor, he's just going to finish me off with the Bug Buzz. I can now bring in my Cresselia, which I know you guys are thinking, why did you do this? The reason I did this is because, as you can see from the damage calc, even if this thing was modest max special attack, Cresselia can take any one hit and be able to paralyze it, completely nullifying this thing as a threat. Also, because Rotom is almost dead, I don't have to worry about that whatsoever, which means I would have been able to shut down the Exceligor. Once I got rid of Rotom, the only threat that I would have to be worried about would be his Aggron. Unfortunately, that isn't the case, and I guess he knew Cresselia would be able to take a hit, so he actually switches out into the Munchlax, and I go for the Moonlight knowing that I am below 80% HP. I cannot afford that, so my best move to go for was the Moonlight as I go for the Psychic just to get off a bit of damage on this Munchlax. I'm hoping if he does pull the Body Slam, he will not paralyze me. Actually, luckily for me, he gets the better move that he could have pulled, which is the Whirlwind. Well, better for me anyways, and Whirlwinds me out to my Sand Slash, which is something, a better switch in that I could ask for, because honestly this is great because now I know he more than likely is not going to bring in the Rotom, just wanting to save it for later on, so I can directly go for the Rapid Spin, be able to spin the rocks away. As he pulls the rest, I can now pull a switch out to my Slowking, being able to save my Sand Slash for later on in the battle, for once I do get rid of his Rotom. If he does get the rocks up again, I can always just go for the Rapid Spin and spin them away, which means my Entei will not have to take entry hazard damage. Sorry about that. But yeah, I brought in my Slowking, he just Whirlwinds me out, and at the amount of HP that Munchlax is at, I do have a chance to 2 KO him, so I just stay in, take a risk, go for the Flare Blitz as he goes for the Body Slam. Thankfully he doesn't paralyze me. I go for another one and he lives on 1% Oh my god, when I saw that thing lived on 1% HP, I literally just wanted to throw my DS across my room, because now this Munchlax is still going to be the bane of my existence throughout this whole battle. And this turn he switched down to his Rotom, I guess just thinking I would want to leave in my Entei. As I brought in my Slowking, he's going to die up to the burn, but now he can get a free switch into his Aggron, and I know I do have a chance to actually live this head smash, so barring the fact that I do not get paralyzed, I will be able to get off a great chunk of damage with this Scald. Thankfully for me, I live on 6%, Oko the Aggron, which means the only threat now is going to be that Exceligor, but still, Exceligor can Oko or 2 KO almost my entire team, so I definitely have to watch out for that. As he does bring it in, I was hoping he would go for the U-turn, but he makes the better of the two plays and actually goes for the Bug Buzz, taking out my Sand Slash. As this turn I can bring in my Entei. Unfortunately, the Extreme Speed is pretty obvious, but I actually was hoping that maybe he thought I would overpredict and like go for a Stone Edge or something and just want to stay in. That way I could possibly Oko him with the Extreme Speed or bring him down to a point where the Life Orb will finish him off, but that was really stupid of me to think, considering the fact that Munchlax is easily the best switch in he has for this Entei. As I go for the Extreme Speed, I was actually hoping he would not pull the Body Slam, because judging for how much damage the Extreme Speed was doing, it looked like it could possibly 3 KO him. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. He does pull the Body Slam. As his turn, I bring in my Rotom, and I'm going to go straight for the Trick, which thankfully for me, he does stay in, and he just goes for the Sleep Talk. Again, pulls the Body Slam. Above that, he's going to paralyze me, which, I'm not going to lie, was really frustrating, because this Munchlax is already hard to take down. But because I did trick it, I know now it's not going to be as big of an issue as it could be. I Volt Switched on out to my Slowking. The reason I did this is because I can then pull a switch out to my Cresselia, just so I could get my Regenerator, or I could stay in and go for the possible Side Shock. But he actually predicted me to switch out and switches into its Exceligor. And again, because I am full HP, I know I can take any one hit from this Exceligor, safely go for the Thunder Wave, and not really have to worry about it as much, because I should still be able to outspeed it. But again, he makes the better play, goes for the U-turn, and U-turns out into his Munchlax, which is actually not bad at all. But because I did get rid of the Eviolite, I'm pretty positive that the Psychic will be able to finish off the Munchlax, which means the giant nuisance that is this Munchlax is finally gone. But he does still have the Exceligor, and he's going to bring out the Sand Slash, and at the amount of HP that he's at, unless that I get max damage with this Ice Beam, I will not be able to finish off the Sand Slash. Then again, there's nothing Sand Slash can do to me that will really threaten me. Even if he did go for the Stone Edge, I should still be above 80% HP to take a hit from that Exceligor, so I really had no reason to switch out, as he lives on 1%, much like Rotom and the Munchlax. He's going to be able to Toxic me, which really doesn't matter, because I'm obviously not going to be keeping in my Cresselia for too long to allow the toxic damage to start racking up on me. I then finish him off with a Psychic on the off chance that maybe he wanted to bring in the Hariyama for some odd reason. And speaking of a Hariyama, he brings that in. Knowing the fake out is pretty obvious, I decided to bring in my Slowking as opposed to bringing in my Rotom because I want to be able to save my Rotom so I can force that Exceligor to rack up some more Life Orb recoil damage on itself, bringing it down to a point where my Cresselia Psychic will be able to finish it off a whole lot easier. As I stay in, I can take literally any one hit from this thing. Even if he was carrying Thunder Punch, I'm pretty sure I would have been able to live that, but because he did go for the close combat, due to the defense drops and the Side Shock damage, I will be able to bring him down to a point where the Toxic will be able to finish him off, and his last is going to be this Exceligor, which is still very, very threatening, but as long as I keep Cresselia around and not switch it in on a direct hit from this thing, I really have nothing to worry about it. And I'm actually going to switch directly onto my Rotom to get Regenerator from my Slowking, and the reason I did this is because Slowking, at the amount of HP that is at, if this Exceligor is Timid Life Orb, I can easily live one hit, possibly, and be able to retaliate with the Scald or Side Shock, but if he's Modest Life Orb, he takes me out. I don't know if he is Timid or Modest because he just takes out my Slowking, and here it all comes down to whether or not my Cresselia will be able to live this Bug Buzz, which if you saw from the damage calc, I can, but if I do not finish this thing off with a Psychic, then it's going to come down to a draw because I will be able to knock him down to a point where the Life Orb, the Fallen turn, once he finishes off my Cresselia, will take himself out for the tie. Thankfully for me, I am able to knock out the Exceligor for the very, very narrow 1-0 victory in my favor. Man, that battle was really intense. I actually had a whole lot of fun in it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe as you please. I don't know what else to say, guys. That battle was fucking awesome. At least I thought so. Anyways, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. I've taken enough of your time. I do believe I am out of here. Later.